Well, welcome all. This is our third We the People, For the People, property owner meetings, forums. Thank you for joining us again. I appreciate everything. Some of us, I want to say that we're here just to share with you what we've accomplished in the last 3 months of our last 3 forums. So I like to bring you up to date each time, particularly because we've had such a generous amount of donations to the We the People fundraising campaign. So here's what we've done. As you know, we created a website. We've held 3 forums, including tonight, all of which can be viewed on We the People, For the People website. We do have a professional videographer here this evening, and within, it should be at least 3 or 4 days, it will be up on our website for everybody to view. We have placed 3 ads in the Village Voice announcing each forum. We just successfully completed our mailing of postcards to 15,000 non-residents. We committed to doing that early on, and just so you know, that particular expense was $6,500, but we did it. And I'm receiving feedback through our website because we are able to capture emails when people log on. I'm getting feedback that the non-residents are receiving, and they're looking at our website. So, and we're not finished yet. We will keep the We the People property owners' voices loud and clear on our Vote No message throughout the month of November. As you were coming in, you saw that we're selling our Vote No signs again. This is a fundraiser for us, so even if you purchased one already, if you would be kind enough to purchase another one, that would be really helpful. And you can put them out tonight. I know several people, well, many people have emailed me to say they have received citations on their garage doors or on their doors, but it's official. You can put your sign out. If you have more than one lot, you can put a sign out on each of your lots, each of your properties. Make sure you do that when you get home this evening. Okay, voting. As you came into the auditorium this evening, We the People handed out a 1-page handout with dates and guidelines as far as when the ballots will be mailed out, what the deadline is for returning them, what the procedure is if someone should want to change their vote at the last minute. And most importantly, it shares with you that be sure to read what it says on the ballot. So if it says to put an X in a box, put the X, don't put a check. If it says to fill the whole box in, make sure you do that. If you're voting all no, and don't put a line down, or if you're voting all yes, don't put a line down, because it will invalidate the vote. So be careful with your ballots. Okay, also that information is on our website as well. So before I introduce to you our guest speakers for the evening, I have one other introduction to make. Marcy Mermel. She doesn't know I'm going to do this. Marcy, can you stand up? Marcy just recently announced that she's going to run again as a candidate for a position on the Hot Springs Village Board. Thank you, Marcy. I just want you to know you'll have my vote.
Thank you.
Okay, so our speakers tonight, we can go ahead and move forward. All right, we have Gene Gardner. He's going to raise his hand. He's a resident since 1992. We have Tom Blakeman. He's a resident owner since 2015. Robert Bussey, he's been here since 2002. And Jim Langford, he's our old-timer, 1998. Oh, no. Who's been there longer? Oh, no, sorry, Gene. You've been here longer. Sorry about that. Okay. And I'm the moderator. I've just been here since 2015. I managed to stir up a lot of trouble in a few years that I've been here. Okay, our format tonight is the declarations and articles of incorporation. What are these things anyway? Review the declaration vote items, there's 12, why you should vote no. Review the articles of incorporation vote item, why you should vote no. The lies and the truths, and there's been a lot of all of that going around in the last few months. And then there'll be a Q&A discussion. So at this time, I'm going to ask anybody that wants or needs an index card and a pencil, if you would just raise your hand, and we have some volunteers that are going to come by down the aisles, and they'll hand you a card if you have not received one already. Does anybody need one? There's a couple hands down here. Oops, you got to raise your hand again. Sorry, they're just coming down the aisle. I think there's one over here. Oh, there's a couple in the middle here. And then we'll get to you over there on the side. Here comes Vicki. No, here comes Vicki. She's going to bring them down. We got some down here, Dickie, too. Okay, they're getting... Anybody else? All right, if you, after the presentation ends, or we'll ask again if a question has popped into your mind that you want to write a question about, we can give you a card at that point too. Okay, at this time, we're going to turn over the presentation to our guest panelists. Thank you.
Am I on? I'm on. Thank you, Lori. It's wonderful to be here tonight. Thank you all for coming. Hopefully we'll have a good presentation for you, and that you learn something and like what we have to say. So what are these declarations anyway? I like to think of them as the constitution of the village. They established the village. They set up the basic foundation governing rules. They define the property, the boundaries. They declare who the developer is and what his rights are. They also declare who the members are. You and me, we're members. And we have rights too. And they created the POA actually as a nonprofit corporation, and they define the POA's role and responsibilities in the village, right on the first page. And why are they so important that we're having all this concern and voting on them and so forth? Well, they do what we call run with the land. If you sell or transfer your property, they go with it. There's not a choice in the matter. You get the declarations whenever you buy into the village. We all did when we got here. You all have the opportunity to read them before you buy. They define what the common properties are. They talk about the easements, and we'll go on to easements a little bit later in some more detail. And they talk about the reserved properties. And the bottom line really is that they promote and establish continuity in the village, stability, and they're really the basis for your investment. They weren't meant to be changed all the time, certainly not every year or any time the board or the management decides we need to change them. They were meant to be static for the most part. And as I said, they're a basis for investment, so they're going to affect your property values. Now, how do you change them if you want to? Well, the developer can assign these rights, and he's actually done that. Last time was in 2011, and there's a provision, Article 14, in the declarations that talks about what he can do and how he does it. And the last time he did that, like I said, was in 2011, and he and the POA entered into an agreement called the Assignment and Assumption of Developer Rights. And what he did in that, he gave two powers that he had two rights that he had, and rights is a key word here: the power to appoint ACC members and the power to amend, rescind, or add to the protective covenants. And that's all he gave. And interestingly enough, although this is referenced in the protective covenants that is now 120 pages, it's a secret document for the POA. If you ask, you can't get a copy. But the funny thing is, that assignment of rights is a public record down in Garland County, but the POA won't give it to you. So also members have certain voting rights. And the developer has voting rights. But the POA doesn't have voting rights. And they actually have a very narrowly defined role. We'll talk about that in a minute. And the amendments, if we choose to amend them, and that's what we're here talking about tonight, is the vote to amend them, of course, is every 7 years. And this is not the right slide. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Owners in good standing can vote, and the majority constitute a quorum. But if you read through these declarations, there's no talk anywhere about removing anybody's rights. So you can't remove your right to vote. But some people here want to remove Cooper's rights that he has for voting. And the other thing that's really important here is to know that you as members can't just stand up and say, hey, we need to amend these things. The board of directors has to decide that it's appropriate. And that's what they've done recently. In the last few years, they've been working on this, and they called the vote. I don't know about you, but nobody came to me and asked me if there was anything I thought might need to be changed. But yet, here we are. So we talked about the POA having a limited role. And there it is right there. It's on page 1 of the declarations. Here's what your POA is supposed to do: construction and maintaining of the water and sewer, maintaining and administering the other community properties, administering and enforcing the covenants and restrictions, and collecting and dispersing. Guess what? There's no mention of the POA being a developer or partnering with developers. I think that's important to know. So let's now talk about the Articles of Incorporation. These are basically the legal entity that allows the POA to operate under the laws of Arkansas. They were originally recorded in 1970, and they were incorporated under the act that applied, or the state law that applied at that time, which was written in 1963. And amendments can be made by the board, but if you want to change to the newer law, which was written in 1993, we do have to have a vote of the members. And I think I do have the wrong slide, because it's not 2/3 vote, it's a majority. So why are the articles so important? Well, like I think I mentioned, it's the legal framework for how the POA can operate. It defines and authorizes the board of directors. It talks about who the original incorporators were and the purpose. And of course, if voted in, it would then be following the laws and the rules that came in 1993. So, anybody asleep yet? I'm not particularly experienced in doing this, so if I look like I'm nervous, guess what? It's because I am. Thank you. Anyway, we're going to now do the declarations. There's 12 of them. And of course, as you know, you're going to get on your ballot, your proxy, whatever you want to call it, you're going to get a box of some sort to check for each and every one. So we're going to go through them one at a time. Now this is sort of tedious. I'm going to go fairly quickly. Just bear with me if you can. I'm calling them by proposal number because I believe that's how they're going to be labeled on the ballot, as well as the actual labeling that's in the declarations, this red up here. So each one's going to have proposal 1, 2, 3, and it's going to have the name of whatever it applies to. Now, in my opinion, and many others, this one more or less makes the POA a developer. Remember, we said the declarations don't give the POA that right. It really gives equal status to the POA with the developer, the original developer, Cooper Communities, and it's trying to take away some of Cooper's rights. And again, contrary to the defined role. But you know, it doesn't have any effect on the reserve properties that Cooper has here, and he has quite a bit. And they can pretty much do what they want regardless of how this one goes. But the big one here is it gives the POA the right to add property to the village. And it's the board that gets to do that, people. It's not you. It's the board only. And you need to know that. Number 2, this has to do with voting rights. And this is a popular one with the yes voters, I'm sure. They want to get rid of Cooper's 10 votes that he has because we only have 1 as members. Good idea maybe, huh? Well, Cooper only has, last time I heard, and it could have changed a little bit, 70 lots, so that's 700 votes. And we're basically trying to take one of his rights away. So to me, it contradicts Article 14, Section 4, which says the developer reserves and has the right to assign his rights. It doesn't say somebody can vote them away. Now, I'm not a lawyer, none of us up here are, but I do read English pretty well, and that's how I read it. What would you do if you were the developer and someone tried to take your rights away? I'd not be too happy about it personally. So vote no on that one too. Proposal 3, lengthy title up there. This is about the water and sewer system. The wording is very complicated. I mean, if I've read this once, I've read it dozens of times. The claims by the POA are that this is going to reduce what they call unplanned financial liability. And, you know, the idea that Cooper brings in property or whatever, that we might have to extend some sewer lines or whatever. And supposedly it allows the developer to share costs. And this is, whoops, sorry about that. It allows the developer to share costs. It's a small d, notice. I'm big on little picky things like that, but all of a sudden we've got a small d developer in these changes. And of course the idea is to delay the vote 24 months. But there's some drawbacks, I think. First off, it only applies to those new properties that are going to be added to the village. And the word allows, which is used in the promotional verbiage, is basically what it does. It allows, but it doesn't guarantee that these costs are going to actually be paid by any small d developer. It all depends on an agreement between the POA and the small d developer or whoever the developer is. And all the thousands of lots that are in the village that haven't been developed, they're already covered by this, so it won't affect them. And if you really like the Jesseville school deal, which some of you did, you're going to love this because the wording in there that's controversial, the wording that got me on the front page of the paper arguing with Mr. Weiss in the board meeting, if you recall, that wording is totally removed. So the POA can basically sell water and sewer to whoever they want, whenever they want. I'd vote no. So, anybody having fun yet? I'm having a blast. So, yeah, so I moved here about 3 years ago, and I really didn't pay much attention. The first year I was here, I was playing golf and, you know, having a good time. And, you know, one day I start reading the paper. There's these letters to the editor and stuff, and so I began to pay attention. And that's sort of what led me here. Eventually, I started going to board meetings and things, and I saw things that I didn't think were quite the way they should be. So I started looking into things, and here I am. Proposal 4. This is again similar to that last one, but this one's talking about roads, basically, ways of access, they call them. And the idea here is that the POA won't have an obligation to accept permanent maintenance responsibility. Well, that sounds all right, I guess. And it's supposed to assure that new construction streets meet construction quality standards. It sounds good. Yeah. But the wording is faulty. It only really gives the POA the option to accept substandard construction. Now, once the road is built, we're going to somehow not take the option to maintain it? That doesn't make any sense. There needs to be a construction standard up front that needs to be signed off on. So this is faulty, vote no. Proposal 5. Here we go, golf courses, recreation plots, and so forth. Complicated wording. All of it's complicated, but this is particularly so. It sort of suggests, the way I read the proposed change, that we might actually want another golf course. How many of you want another golf course? Raise your hand. Oh, good. Yeah. Oh, 2 people. That's great. And this one also has that big D, little d, everywhere a DD. You know, there's the developer and then there's the little developer. So the new developer is going to maintain whatever he builds for 5 years. Now, I don't know about you, but if I was a developer and I came in here and built something, whatever it might be, I'm going to probably, if it's a building, build it and sell it to somebody and be gone. I'm not going to want to hang around and maintain it for 5 years, not to mention a road. So I think somebody's been drinking that Kool-Aid. I don't know who they are, but I'd sure like to know where they get it. It does talk about the POA having reasonable construction standards and adding them to the protective covenants, but guess what? It's already been done. Most of those standards, to the layman at least, are unreasonable. 120 pages we now have. I know we paid somebody big money so they could cut and paste from some other job they did and bill us for it. But now they want the POA, for us voters, to basically condone this. That's what this is all about. So I say vote no. Number 6. This talks about members' easements. Well, the wording here at the top, you wouldn't know it's really talking about your dues, but that's what it is. And the wording again is tricky. The claims sound good. We're going to be protected from subsidizing dues of delinquent owners. And heaven help us if somebody breaks a rule, we're going to have protection from that. Guess what? We already have all that. We don't really need to change it. The new infraction penalties are excessive because it's going to be an indefinite privilege suspension. And we're already experiencing the infraction police. And quite frankly, I don't see any evidence at all that we have a problem with people. I heard Tom Weiss stand up here and talk about somebody stacking tires up above the roof line of his house on his deck or something. I don't know where that is. Maybe that was an isolated case. But for the most part, when I drive around this village, I just see pretty nice stuff. But golly, look, it's one of those penalties. This was on my door because I put a sign out. $150 fine and $25 a day, and they want to make it more onerous than this. I don't think so. I think you vote no. Number 7. Here again, the yes claims, they sound pretty good. Sorry, I got to get a drink of water here. This is about that vetoing of one class of members over another, because certain things now you have to have all of the Class B votes majority and all of the Class A votes majority in order to pass something. They want to get rid of that, make it easier to pass things. And of course, because Cooper has the 10 votes, this is basically an anti-Cooper proposition. And it actually applies basically to transfers and sales of common property. That's the crux of it. But why do we need it? I only met Cooper once for about 10 minutes, about 3 or 4 weeks ago. He seemed like a nice enough guy to me. I did come to his meeting that he had here. And I don't see him being a problem if we had some piece of common property that we needed to do something with that made sense. Why would he object? And what common property do we really need to transfer? I don't really know of any, and we did hear, of course, again from Mr. Weiss, or is it Weiss? I'm not sure how he pronounces it, quite frankly. Weiss, excuse me if he's here, excuse me. He talked about this postage stamp out by the West Gate, and there was going to have to be a condemnation, and it was this big deal. Well, those things happen all the time, and I don't see that it's a big deal. So if this is about the postage stamp, no, I think it's really trying to steal another one of Cooper's rights. Well, I'm ready to go to sleep. How about you? Everybody awake? Somebody's getting a phone call, I can tell you that. Maybe that's Tom Weiss, I don't know. So proposal 8, we're getting close, we're getting down the line here. This is all brand new, they're gonna add this, okay? And it comes into that associate members easements thing. And this is about selling or abandoning common property. Now, I know everybody wants to say that this has nothing to do with the CMP, this vote, but think about that as we go on here. They want to be able to sell or abandon common property. It's a board approval only, okay? You don't get to vote on it, people. If you elected a board that turns out they weren't a good board, you don't have any say-so. They're going to sell whatever they want. It's supposed to be for what they call minor property, minor pieces. Well, there's 26,000 acres here in the village. 1,000 acres, by a lot of people's measure, might be considered minor. Or maybe a couple of square feet is minor. I don't know, it doesn't really say, but the board would decide that, not you. Now, it does require written consent if you have a lot that's contiguous to the property that they're going to do whatever they're going to do with. And that's a good thing. No question about that. But if you happen to have a lot or your house is within 200 feet, you're not adjacent, you know, there's a couple hundred feet, all you get is a written notice. You don't have any right to object.
Is this eminent domain? Is this the same thing as eminent
No, it's not. We do not have power of eminent domain here, but this is sort of going in that direction, I think. So, but it's bad because, like I said, there's no definition of minor. I personally think that if I were 200 feet from some piece of property that's going to be disposed of or something built on it, I might like to have some say-so, because I don't want a high-rise, a 7-Eleven, a strip mall, or something within 200 feet of my house. Okay, proposal number 9. This is an easy one, really. The board wants the right to raise your dues by 5% every year, and it does away with the CPI-based adjustment. And they make talk about how it's the CPI Southern Region, yada, yada, yada. You know, that's no good. CPI is no good. We want 5%. I don't really think it needs to be talked about, but we're going to go through this anyway. First off, they just adopted the CPI thing in 2013. That's 5 years ago. If this is so good, why didn't all those smart people that had this done then want the 5% then? I guess they weren't thinking straight, I don't know. The CPI is used by most pensions, all the government, military. I don't see anything in it that gives an incentive for the board of directors to economize on anything. And I hate to mention it, but we just passed a budget that had a few problems. And I don't know about you, but I can't believe that the increase would ever be less than 5%. Frankly, I've lived in neighborhoods personally before where it was a 5% max. And every year, guess what? 5%, whether you needed it or not. That's how it works. And a lot of us in here get Social Security. I do. I think mine might have gone up a penny last year after they took out more for Medicare or whatever it was. So, not 5%. So this is a vote no in my book. And then we've got number 10. Annual and special assessments. This is capital improvements on the one hand, or just to increase the annual assessment across the board. The same selling point as the other one that we talked about, where we're going to equalize the number of votes per class. And I'm kind of the opinion, and I think some of you may be, hopefully you will come to that realization, that we might just need a class guy, hey, Cooper, he might fit that bill, that comes in and says, you know, this special assessment doesn't make sense, and he might help us vote it down, because otherwise we might end up with something like the 2-tier. Do you really want it easier to make your assessments go up? I think it ought to be hard to raise assessments, personally, just like it ought to be hard to change these declarations. And of course, again, this was just modified 5 years ago. What's changed? Oh, we got a CMP now. With me, everybody? We're having a good time? All right. Oh, I pushed the wrong button. There we go. Did we miss one? No, we didn't. Okay. Proposal number 11 on the declarations. Architectural Control Committee. Great promises. We're going to strengthen standards. We're going to protect your property values. Baloney. It already got changed. 3 pages that were in place for about 40-some years went to 120 pages, all thanks to your board of directors that was and is currently in place. What do they want? Just more power, in my opinion. And there's a clause in there about a 45-day override if somebody decides to build something that's not appropriate and they ask for approval and somehow it slips between the slats in the POA office or the Architectural Control Committee and it doesn't get approved. There's an override clause that says, well, it's okay, we didn't turn you down, so it's in there. They should have taken that out if they wanted to do something that might make sense, but they didn't. They left it in there. So again, vote no. And now the worst for last. This is the one that everybody says, oh yeah, well I'm going to vote no on everything, but duration is the thing. I've got to vote for duration. It's great. That means we could be doing this every year. Twice a year maybe in a good year. Who knows? The declarations, like we said earlier, they run with the land. They're like the Constitution of the United States. It's not supposed to be easy to change. And the fact of the matter is, if you're changing the rules of the game every other month or every other year, how are people going to come in here and want to buy into this place when they don't know whether next year the rules are going to change? They're going to lower the value of properties. Not to mention, this is costing a fortune.
All of us.
Yeah, it's expensive. This little ditty right here, 50 grand for this color brochure, mailing and whatever. Then there's all the promotional stuff that's gone on and so forth. This little one here, I did for free, 15 pages. This is why this one is wrong. And of course, it's what got me up here on the stage. So, there you are. I say vote no on duration. I just don't see any other solution. And I know y'all are going to sleep. I'm about to fall over myself, personally. But guess what? We got articles now. Now, we're going to actually talk about the articles in a couple different places. My friend here, Jim, is going to talk about that in a little while, but I'm going to touch on it first. There's only one articles item up for vote. And like I said, I got the wrong slide here. It's a majority vote. I hope I've got Jim's other slides in the presentation we're viewing because we made some last minute changes and I don't know, we'll see. So the spin on this, many unanswered questions. Yeah, I've been wondering about it ever since before I moved in here. Wow. Modern standards, oh, that sounds good. Clear and complete rules. For who? I don't know, but that's the spin. But we're in the no spin zone here tonight, folks. It's all about power. If you vote this in, and there might be some good things in the 93 rules, don't get me wrong, and Jim will touch on that a little bit. But liability of directors is reduced. Directors and officers, it's pretty much a free hand. Give business to your friends and your family. You don't have to have board meetings anymore to have a vote. All you've got to do is have a phone call where you can hear each other. And corporate transactions, according to the University of Arkansas Law Review, are going to be much less likely to be challenged. So I say vote no. Now, this is not like the declarations. You don't have to wait 7 years if next year we have good reasons to change this. And why they threw it in with 12, well, why we have 13 things to vote on to begin with is beyond my imagination because it's just too much almost for anybody to grasp. But yet here we are. But this one at least, if we vote it down this time, which is what I think should be done, perhaps we can have an opportunity to have open forums, discuss the pros and cons with the public, and it won't just come out of the blue, oh, we need you to vote on this because it's got unanswered questions. So, across the board, I'm asking every one of you here tonight, vote no. So where are we, folks? We've done the explanation of these things called declarations and articles. We've gone over each one by one. We're now on the portion we call lies and truth. And Jim, guess what, buddy? You're up.
My turn. Thanks, Tom. You did an excellent job. Give him a hand. First of all, I need to tell you all, I had toe surgery last Wednesday, so I'm hobbling around. I won't be moving near as much as he was. And I also want to thank Tom. Both of us have a PowerPoint on our computers. Neither one of us had ever used it. And I retired 20 years ago, and we weren't using it. We were still using the old slides with the overhead. I don't know about Tom, but anyway, I started trying to make slides, and Tom was making slides. And his came out looking a whole lot better than mine did. I mean, I like everybody to give him a hand for the job that he did. This is an excellent job of the PowerPoint. I got lucky to get to talk about lies and truth. And most of them are lies. The first thing I'm going to talk about is going to be declaration changes that not being related to the CMP. How many people have heard that 100 times already? And Cooper left the village. I mean, we're going to talk about that. And no problem with trust. You know. How about everybody that believes and trusts Leslie Nally raise their hand? 1, 2, 3. Okay, not very many. How many believe and trust Tom Weiss? Same people. Okay, all right. And also, I'm also going a little bit more detail on the 1993 Nonprofit Corporation Act. I'm going to talk about easements and the CMP. This is very key. I didn't know about it until about a month ago, and it totally blew my mind. Oh, you can't hear me? Oh. Maybe it is, I don't know. And the last thing is going to be spending budgets and personnel in the village. So the first thing we're going to go to is the declaration changes, not related to the CMP. And the first thing the first proposal of the board, the right to add property without a member vote. And this is just another, Tom touched on it, just another grab of power for the POA, and it looks like it's want to make them a developer. And the same with proposal 3, relying on POA for developer agreements without a member vote. Same thing. It's essentially we're going to try to. It looks like they want to be a developer. I'm sorry I can't move very much with my foot. I'm doing the best I can. And Proposal 8 is the board of directors' right to sell common property. For the life of me, I don't know why they would want to sell common property, but they can by this. They want to sell it. And Proposal 10 makes it easier. Tom was just talking about it, easier for the members to increase the assessment and provide funding for the development. That's the only reason that you can come up with to continue increasing the assessment. I'm going to talk about spending and budgets later on and give you a little better idea. So first thing we're going to talk about is the next thing we're going to talk about, the next thing is Cooper left the village. How many times y'all heard that? I mean, everybody's complaining Cooper went off and left the village. Well, he left right in the middle of a recession. He didn't really leave. He just closed his office down. That's all he did. I mean, the man still owns property in here and has a lot of control. But everybody keeps saying he went off and left us. And he's back. He's back. He's back full time. You've seen the signs at the gates, one in the middle of the village, one out there on Highway 5. I don't know how many there are, 4 or 5, I don't know. And he's opened his office up on right next to Village Lands and Homes, and he would love to talk to you. He loves to talk to people. He's a little bit shy in the public speaking area, but he even said, I'd like to get on my bicycle and go out and ride and go knock on people's doors and talk to them. So if you want to talk to him, stop in there and talk to him. He'll tell you the dead level truth about what's going on. He doesn't pull any punches. and I don't know how many were at the last forum we had. He spoke there without any notes, basically working off of questions, and did an excellent job. And the place was packed. And people had to. It's a shame people had to go home. They couldn't even find a place to park, and they couldn't get in the building. And he's requested a meeting with the board probably several times, and the board has refused to meet with him on a one-to-one basis, the board and John Cooper. Now they've asked him to meet here, and he's not, I don't know he's going to accept it. He hasn't accepted it. I don't think he's accepted it. He's here? Is John here? I don't know what he's saying. There he is.
That is correct. I have been offered an invite to meet with the board.
All right. Okay, so we can take this one off the list.
That was after we filed a suit in Raleigh County for a request of information. We want to see the POA books. We want to see the salaries. We want to know what our money is being spent on. Yes. I replied to the offer, to the invitation, and I said I'd be happy to meet with the board, but I got to have the information first, because I don't know what we'll talk about. I don't know what the numbers are. In fact, we had three of our employees from our accounting department go in today from 1 to 5 and look at the books, and we had an auditor from Hogan Taylor come with us. And I was a little late because I was visiting with them. And we can't take any copies. We got to just see what we see. We can take notes. And that's what we have to study to be able to assess financial strength of the association and what our money is being spent on. And we're off for 3 days to do that. And we could go back tomorrow, but it really wasn't the point because there's 17,000 lines of information, and you can't sit there with a big cheap tablet to figure out what's going on. So we're hoping that if they won't release the information, maybe the judge will. We think we're entitled to it, and if the board is going to be transparent, I think they should act like it, let us see the books. And if anybody wants to come talk to me about this, I am available, and I've been here Monday through Wednesday, and if I need to come more, I will. I'll come to your house, come to your neighborhood. I want everybody to meet me and know me. There's been some things said about me compared to my father and my grandfather, and it's false. What I've read is all false. But nobody seems to take the time to come actually meet me and hear from me. A lot of folks that are supporting the no vote come into this office, but a lot of the yes folks won't come see me. But I'm not going to bite. I'll give you some coffee and some donuts, and we can have a conversation. And at the end of the day, we might agree to disagree. That's okay. But we got to have the discussion. If that's a concern, because it seems if you have an opposing view, you can't be heard. We got to be able to agree to disagree. We got to have an honest discussion with each other to understand the problems, because we can't solve them if we don't understand.
Thank you, John. I could skip the next item. The only thing he didn't say was he is opposed to the vote, so we'll go to the next item. How about, I just asked y'all about trust, and these are the things that John was talking about. If you go to the POA or you ask for something, they'll tell you it's not available, or if it is available, you have to show it to you. You can't make a copy. You can't leave the building with it. I sent Leslie an email one time asking for a copy of the organizational chart, and she sent me a note back and said, contact my executive assistant and she will make an appointment for you. You can come and look at it. And I sent her, oh. That's a little nervous, Bob. Maybe I do like Tom, put my hand in my pocket. But anyway, I mean, that's what all this is about. The secrecy and getting the disclosure of documents. Now, the executive sessions, there are no minutes for it. I did see the other day that they approved the minutes for about, I don't know, 6 or 8 executive sessions. It seems like every time they have a meeting, they have another executive meeting or 2. I don't know. Nobody knows what goes on in there. And so it'd be nice to know. And like Tom said, 13 proposals at once. Are you kidding me? I mean, that's a lot you ought to be trying to read this stuff and make sense out of it, and make a presentation out of it. It's not easy, because it's all legal wording, and it's very difficult. And members had no vote on the input of the measures that they vote on. It was a committee that was, I think, closed door, and there was no minutes that were leaked that were put out from the meeting that put this all together. The next thing, okay, we get to this 1993 nonprofit corporation. Like Tom said, the village was incorporated in April 1970 as a 501c4, I think, and it was changed in 1980 by the IRS to a 528. But anyway, that's where we are today. And the things that are in the board, we're being told that, I'm sorry, the first thing I want to talk about is actions by the board of directors in this new nonprofit, 1993 nonprofit. Actions can be taken by the board of directors without even having a meeting. That's in there. That's in there. It's hard to read, and as long as a quorum is reached, and any communications, they can have a meeting on using phones, right? The verbiage says any communications where they can hear each other. They can have a meeting, so they could have a meeting, one of them be in Detroit, one of them be in Dallas, 2 of them be here, and they could have a meeting as long as they can be heard by some kind of device. Assume it's a phone. And to have a meeting, only 10% of the owner quorum is needed for a vote. But I think our bylaws probably say that's different. Once the law is adopted, it's irrevocable. You can't go back. So if you go, you're going for good. And one thing that is kind of good and bad, the director's liability, they aren't liable for contractual obligations and protected against negligence. This is a really interesting one here, and John Cooper taught me a lot in our first forum about utility easements, Article 4 utility easements, and all the utility easements are reserved to the Cooper communities, and just like the land runs with the declaration, the easements run with the declarations, runs with the land, so they can't be changed. And they're all in the easement, over the easement, or under easement. It's an encompassing thing, and it's a 7.5 foot strip on each piece of property. Your lot, and I'll show you the. This is my final survey of my property, and it's hard to see this line. But it goes all the way around my whole thing. Here it is blown up. Hit the wrong button. That says 7.5 foot drainage and utility easement. That's around every one of your lots, completely around. And also, Cooper also owns 10-foot easement around the entire village. And it's a 10-foot easement, and he owns the property. It encircles the entire village all the way around. And he also, all of the major roads have easements on, like the DeSoto has, I believe it's 200 to 300 feet of easements on DeSoto Boulevard. All the major roads like Barcelona, Alaric, Ponce, Ortez, all your major roads have 100 to 200 feet of easements on that, and that was done in foresight of selling all the property and then building all of the 30-something thousand houses that would be on the property. So you can imagine what traffic would be like in this village with let's say you got 30,000 houses, that's 60,000 people if you have 2 per house. So you need 4-lane roads to get up and get in and out of this place. So it's an easement there that. Let me back up just a second. I'll cover it later. Okay. In spending and budgets and personnel, has anybody ever seen cost cutting done in the village? To put a group together to sit down and to study things and decide if you can not spend this or not spend that. I mean, it's just in the business I worked in, you made budgets every year, and you had guidelines to make them, and you might not hit them, you might beat them, but I mean, if you didn't hit them, your pay raise wasn't as good as it would have been if you'd hit it. You were judged on those kind of things. And right now, the spending is absolutely out of control. It looks to me like with the CMP, consultant and lawyer, CMP was $500,000 that we know of, and we don't know about how let's just say consultants and lawyers. We don't know about those. Public relations is not good because it seems like everything is going the wrong way. With every time something comes up, it's a negative to the people. And homes and lands is next to John's office up there in the plaza by the East Gate, and I don't know for sure, but I've heard it's losing money, but I don't know that for a fact. I've heard that. That's what I just said. I've heard it. And the restaurants, the Last Chance is the only restaurant in here that I know that has stayed in business for so many years, and the POA has nothing to do with that. It's a private restaurant. But, well, that's true. That's probably true. Yeah, but the other ones, just the way I think the deals are set up with the POA and the owners of the restaurants. I think it's hard for them to make money because I've been told that they have to pay a percentage of their profits back to the POA. I don't know whether that's true or not. I've been told that.
Not true. Well, Leslie, stand up.
That's not true. Okay. Okay. I'll buy that. And I'm going to show some organization charts in a minute. We couldn't put them on here, but we have a lot of chiefs and not enough Indians to be truthful with you. But let me show you an organization chart here real quick. I got to find them.
We could come back to that in a minute. I think in the interest of time, because we're about an hour into our forum, let's continue to go through our slides
Okay.
so that we, because I'm starting to get lots of questions.
Okay, all right, okay. I put together a 3-year, and a 3-year, and a year-to-date budget, expenditures, not budget expenditures. And the thing I like to show you, this is back when Twiggs was here. There was a $2.6 million deficit, and then the year after that, there was a $3.1 million surplus, and then in 2017 was a $50,000 surplus. Right now, we're running 2.1 million surplus. That's year to date. And what was shocking to me is when I saw the head count, 28 increase of head count that was in the budget. Now, I don't know whether they've been hired or not, but that was in the budget and approved. And the organization chart I wanted to show you is a vertical organization chart. It's got Leslie at the top and Linda Mayhood, and there's 10.
We have it posted on our We the People website, so you can go to that, and also I know it was sent out by the POA.
You telling me to be quiet?
I'm sorry, what?
Are you telling me to be quiet? Anyway, she shows 11 direct reports, and Linda Mayhood has 9 direct reports. I will be quiet now, if you want me to. But I mean, I would like to read y'all one thing. I had this organized. Just to talk about the CMP not having anything to do with the declarations. I'm gonna give you some things that our new protective covenants allow us to be done. You can merge or split your lots. Let's say you have a lot and you want to make it into 2. You can file with the POA, and if they approve it, or you can combine 3 lots into 1. This is putting it right out of the protective covenant. Housing clusters are 1 to 4 acres. Pocket neighborhoods are similar lots over many acres, and they also have what's called a neighborhood center replat, and that's between 2 and 8 acres. And the problem you have with that, remember I talked to you about the easements around each one of your pieces of property? Well, all these lots that are sitting out in the village that haven't been sold, they have that same easement on them. So if you're going to go out there and combine 20 lots into and replat it for building something, you can't build anything on those easements that are on every one of those lots. So I don't know what they think they're going to do, but that's the truth of the matter with the easements. They're protected. And I want to read one other thing to you. You'll enjoy this before I quit. Huh? I'm losing them?
Yeah, well, I think we better get on to our questions because
Well,
we're running out of time.
let me just have some fun, okay? Under use restrictions, item 11.3.2, adult entertainment establishments are not permitted in the village. Under automotive sales, automobile sales are permitted within storefronts under 10,000 square feet. Parking lots related to the storefront showroom must be located behind the building. Service areas and vehicle storage and stacking must be located behind the main building. I assume that means, you know how when they squash cars for junk, they stack them up? Why would they put that? I have no idea why it's in here. But that's in the protective covenants. And it's just ridiculous.
We have copies of the new protective covenants out front for everybody. We made them, so 120 pages, so get them. Thank you very much.